Greetings again from the stage of the Fortune Global Forum here in Abu Dhabi. I have the honor and the privilege to be joined together with Parag Khanna. Dr. Parag Khanna is one of the leading experts. He doesn't need many introductions in geopolitics, global policy, and today he spoke on the main stage of the forum on the critical topic of climate change, risk and resilience, and the future of real estate. And I'd say basically nationality, where geolocation, where you choose to live.
That's right.
A critical topic. And can you shed a bit more light about how you approach this equation?
Sure. It's thank you so much for having me join you today. This has been a wonderful forum. And what I emphasized, and it's very important to talk about this here on the eve of the COP28 summit, because for a couple of decades now, we have focused more on mitigating climate risk through decarbonization initiatives and less on adaptation. How do we adapt our infrastructure, our real estate, our economies, our populations? And that gap we must overcome. To be clear, by the way, global greenhouse gas emissions have reached 58 gigatons per year, and they are still rising. So yes, we have to put even more effort into decarbonization, but think about the damage that's being done. Hundreds of billions of dollars of insurance premium payouts. If we don't adapt our infrastructure, our housing, our transportation, our food, water, energy systems, the damage is just going to continue to multiply. And that's human damage, not just infrastructural damage. So my message is adapt your economies in addition to managing the transition.
And the world is changing. The energy transition is and at the same time, the climate crisis is hitting hard. And from what I deduce from your excellent presentation, some people don't have the option. So we have to think of a new geography for the real estate market. And a lot of populations might have to consider changes due to climate in the next 100 years. And I'm taking a bit to Greece, where I know you visited a few times. We're looking forward to having you more often. For me, a key element is that Greece is reinventing itself with an investment in the Athenian Riviera, growth in the Riviera, and it believes it could be a destination for digital nomads, for silver tourism, and I strongly feel it can do that. And you have an advice, whether it's in the scope, any key takeaway for the Greeks at this stage?
Well, first of all, I see that Greece has taken a technocratic turn, which is, in my estimation, a very good thing, because I'm a technocrat. So I like to see governments that have an expert, orientation, that are backed by data, that are undertaking pragmatic policy. So Greece has been in this process of reinvention. Really, you could take it back a decade, of course, since the financial crisis and the consequences there. So Greece has really experienced an excellent revival, and I think that's a very positive story. Within that, some of the trends you're describing, like the Athenian Riviera and other kinds of economic reforms, clearly we see the in-migration of young people. You could say that COVID has almost been good for Greece, right? And a number of these markets that I've studied and written about that are attracting talent, young people, investors, that are deregulating a bit to allow for that foreign investment, that is kicking off a positive cycle. We're seeing it in Greece. So I'm very optimistic about that trend. But to maintain that, you have to factor in a couple of things, and climate resilience is one of them. What Greece has experienced in the last couple of years with wildfires has been absolutely devastating.
Enhances desertification, I understand.
Exactly. So not only the effect on peninsular regions in terms of the impact on agriculture, but also the islands as well. And this really did make global news. Now, it should be a warning. And that means a lot of infrastructure, right? New investment. We have to worry about fire risk and how to mitigate fire risk. We have to worry about irrigation systems for agriculture. There are still, just take a separate topic, huge labor shortages in Greece. So Greece does have to think about not just young talent and digital nomads and software programmers, right? And marketing executives, but laborers too, to really support the construction industry and so forth. Everything new that must be built. And in my last book, I actually looked at the tourism sector of Mediterranean economies. And I'm worried about, with the heat effect, right? I know with the Acropolis, they're putting in lights, right? So they can have midnight tours because it's too hot during the day. Even when I was last there, it felt really hot, so all of this is all adaptation. So you and I could think of 1,000 examples of adaptation investments. First of all, I want to say, you need to have started them already. Get started, right? Secondly, it costs a lot, but it will save you money and make you money in the future. because geography is an arbitrage game. You are more or less adapted relative to your neighbors in other countries. So Greece and other countries have to fortify themselves through adaptation so that they become and remain desirable places. And in the age of climate change, we have to continuously nurture those investments.
Excellent points. And I think that we must take heed of them, especially when the quest of Greece is to diversify. So to have a very strong tourism, a year-long model, but also diversify. So we need to invest in a lot of key areas like energy very decisively, and we're doing that. And I'm going back to your book, the techno-state idea. Do you think that Greece has the potential to continue this transformation dynamically with a more open model, and this could it lead to the continuation of the investment we're seeing now?
I think the key word in what you're saying is continuation, continuity. Part of the essence of technocracy is that the system learns from the past, it learns from data, it learns from mistakes, it self-corrects, but you have a long-term vision or a plan, whether it's for modernization, diversification, productivity gains, those kinds of things. If you have a lot of flip-flopping in government, like we see all over Europe, that inhibits that continuity. So focusing on the continuity. Now, the good news is that when governments do the right thing, they can hopefully continuously get reelected in a democratic way, but continue on these technocratic reforms. So that is my hope for Greece. But beyond that, it also requires that creative spark. What should we do, right? What constitutes innovation in a world of climate disruption, geopolitical risk, high energy prices, chat GPT, right? All of these things happening at once. That creativity doesn't come just from the government. It's an all of society kind of thing.
Parag, by means of closing, let's touch a bit on your books. Some of them have, let's say, fresh history. Others now count more than 10 years.
20, almost.
20,
Yeah.
some of them indeed. And
I'm getting old.
so if we start with a key question of where is the world moving towards, the new geography and the shift, the pivot to Asia, that the future is Asian, how much of this do you see coming into reality now? And how do you think we should position ourselves with this tectonic shifts?
Yeah, it's interesting. So
As
much
Europe,
of
as Greece, feel free to.
I mean, so much of what I write about is considered futurism, but all of it is rooted in the present. So, in fact, the book was called, one of them was called The Future is Asian, but really the present is Asian, right? I mean, most of the human population is Asian. Most of global GDP is Asian. All of the economic growth is in Asia. Infrastructure investment, Asia, right? Super apps and technological innovation everywhere, but also Asia. The argument was not that everyone else will wither. You know, I'm a huge champion of Europe. I lived in Germany, you know, as a teenager. So for me, Europe is home. And it's also much more climate resilient than other parts of the world. So my argument was that the world is actually multipolar in ways that are irrevocable. And that was the theme of my first book 20 years ago, was basically saying...
Indicated because we do now live in a multipolar era.
Very much so.
After the unipolar moment.
Exactly. So North America is not going anywhere. If you look at North America, you have a population of 500 million people making huge new industrial investments, attracting a lot of European investment because of the subsidies. Europe, there are a lot of people outside of Europe and inside Europe who are pessimists. Again, I'm an optimist about Europe. You have demographics that are actually, you know, there are a lot of migrants coming in, both those that you want and those that you don't want, but you have to harness them and assimilate them. But you have the climate resilience, and definitely you have the forward-leaning adaptation investments that are being publicly supported in Europe and the energy transition and so forth. So I'm still bullish on Europe. And then there's Asia, and within Asia you have multiple engines: China, Japan, India, Southeast Asia, and so forth. So it is definitely going to be a multipolar world for the rest of our lives. But within those three pillars and across them, there will be competition. And there is going to be this investment arbitrage. Where should we be putting our capital? And capital is going to go not just to places that have historically been considered investment grade, because Moody's says so, right? If the country is not also climate resilient, growing in population, attracting talent, diversifying its economy, remaining affordable, those are the filters. Those are the criteria. I have about a checklist of 10. And countries that do all of those things are going to be the winners. And you can, if you had to reduce it to one thing, it does come back to what's happening very well in Greece right now, is that they're attracting young talent.
Did we cover all 10, or do you want to share it with?
I can't give away all the secrets.
Don't give it
does
away.
that?
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Parag.
Thank you,
Thanks
Pablo.
for the great
Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you.
And looking forward to having you in Athens
Lovely.
soon to guide us through all 10.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.